Well, a very good evening, everybody. Welcome to Graham Easton's playlist. You're either watching on Facebook or on YouTube. If you've never watched the show before, we chat to the greats and good of the Scottish sporting world, be that players or athletes or pundits or commentators, and we ask them to choose the 5 motivational tunes, the ones that get them fired up for the match, or perhaps the ones that they associate with big sporting moments in their life. And talking of big, we've got one of the biggest guests we've ever had. It's Big Dave McPherson, a star of Hearts and Rangers in Scotland back in the day, and he's kindly come out of his retirement, and he's very busy scheduled to have a chat with us about music and his life in football. So we'll bring Dave in just now. Good evening, Dave McPherson. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, Graham. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking time at your busy schedule to join us on a playlist from the comforts of is that your attic? Is your living room there? You look very comfortable there.
It's a sort of room that I do Zoom interviews in, so it's a sort of wee office, miniature office.
Right. Great stuff. So the premise tonight is that we have a little chat with Dave about music and football. His illustrious career playing for Hearts and Rangers in Scotland in the main, though he had a little stint in Australia as well. We'll find out what he's up to just now. But more importantly, rather than just me asking the questions tonight, you guys who are watching are free to ask Dave a question. So whether you're watching on Facebook or whether you're watching on YouTube, just get yourself into the comments, post a little question, try and keep it about football and or music, and we'll put them up on the screen and we'll see what Dave thinks of the answer. So keep them politically correct for a family audience of a Tuesday evening, and that makes sure we can get them on the screen. So we're still stuck in this COVID, David. I know it's kind of changing every 5 minutes, and at the moment we can't go for a beer properly. But how have you found the whole COVID thing? Have you had to change a lot about your life, be it work or family, or has it been pretty much nothing's much changed for you?
I think it's been pretty difficult for everybody, not just me and my family. My mum still lives in Glasgow, and she's basically been out of the house twice in 7 months. So it's been pretty difficult for her. But my brother's been helping out there regarding delivering messages and keeping top of things. Our company do a lot of travelling, so we've had to sort of cut back on that. And we're doing a lot of sort of online stuff and online interviews, either through Zoom or FaceTime or WhatsApp. So I think everybody's trying to adapt the best they possibly can, but I think it's really, really difficult for all concerned, whether it's young or old.
So in terms of those that don't know what you're up to just now, it's global sports recruitment is what you're all about just now. For those that have no idea what that's all about, what's the brief summary as to what your kind of day-to-day work is with global sports?
Yeah, we're basically recruiting student athletes for American colleges and universities. So we do a lot of assessments throughout the world and assess them on their sporting ability, then their academic ability, then we'll fit them into a US college or university after that. So we've been doing it for a good number of years. We basically do it all over the world, from Australia, New Zealand, Middle East, all over Europe, UK and Ireland.
So before COVID, were you doing an awful lot of travelling as part of your job as well?
Yeah, between the beginning of January and the start of the lockdown, I was on like 32 flights. I was in Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, Madrid, London, Dublin, Belfast. Basically, all the hot spots where COVID was, I was there. So I'm probably the super spreader.
So in terms of any particular sports that you kind of specialise in, obviously your background is obviously football, but either yourself or other people part of your team, is it particular sports you specialise in?
It's all sports that offer scholarships, but obviously there's a lot of football there because it's a team sport. Rugby as well, it's a team sport, so there's more opportunities for team sports rather than individual sports like golf or tennis.
Good stuff. And go back to COVID for a second. I've been asking my guests, is there anything new or different they've found out about yourselves in COVID? Or maybe perhaps you've picked up a new skill or talent which you probably wouldn't have ever achieved or learnt if it wasn't for good old COVID, or bad old COVID, I should say.
I've actually appreciated walking about Edinburgh. I mean, I'm born and brought up a Glaswegian, but I've been living in Edinburgh for more or less 25 years now. But I've really appreciated living in Edinburgh due to how quiet it has been during COVID, and just seeing the sort of historical value of different parts of the city, whether it be the castle or old graveyards or different parts of the city that's really ancient. It's got a lot of history to it. So I've really appreciated that aspect of it.
Is that one of the things you're kind of living in a city for so long and you're just so busy with family life and your work life and never actually get a chance to go out and about? I kind of totally relate to that as well. But so maybe there's a new career, Big Dave's walking tours.
It could be. I've picked up a lot of historical knowledge over the past 6 months, but you know what it's like in Edinburgh. It's that busy during the festival and busy during the summer season that you don't actually want to go into Edinburgh. So to actually walk about it when it's really, really quiet is it was certainly enjoyable.
Yeah. We've already got quite a few comments and questions coming in here. I'm going to quickly kind of self-edit, and this one's, I don't know if it's a question as such, but Jack McGill's been got in touch. He says, I remember Big Dave scoring a bullet header at Hampden in a Scottish Cup semi-final 1990 that was disallowed for a push. Was never a push. Great goal. Now that's quite phenomenal memory. I don't know if you remember anything about that, Dave.
I do actually. It was against Airdrie, and it was a fantastic header at the back post, and it got disallowed. If we had VAR nowadays or back then, then I think it certainly would have been passed as a goal, a legitimate goal. But unfortunately, it was disallowed at the time, and much to my annoyance and the rest of the team.
Yeah, I was doing a quick bit of stats and preparation. You're kind of a fairly regular goal scorer for all the teams that you kind of played for. And where's we start here in the first season? We were at Rangers, the first, I might call it the soonest era, 1987. You were fourth top scorer with 8 goals. I mean, you know, somebody called Ali McCoist bagged a couple of goals and people like that. So I mean, you were always a reasonably proficient goal scorer in your time, Dave.
Yeah, I think my stats overall are probably 1 goal in every 10 games, which is pretty good for a centre back. In my European debut for Rangers, I managed to score 4 goals in 1 game.
Yes, I did have that one written down. Is a Maltese team, I think, was it?
Valletta.
Yes.
An away match against Valletta in Malta.
Great stuff. Well, we'll come back to kind of football chat. I like to kind of start, kind of non-football and bring it back to the kind of music and the music people enjoyed or got into when they're kind of grown up. There's a bit of statistical evidence suggests that, you know, for many people around about the kind of 14 or 15, that's when they kind of maybe properly kind of get into the music. Do you have any distinct memories of maybe the first record you ever bought? Because I'm sure it was a record back in the day on vinyl, Dave. I'm sure that you're that vintage.
Yeah, thanks for that. I had friends who their sort of older brothers were in bands at the time, and a lot of the music they played then was sort of rock. It could be the Eagles or sort of heavy rock at the time, Metallica. That's the sort of memories I've got as growing up, the sort of heavy rock music, which was quite loud and dominant throughout the household at the time. And as you said, it was all vinyl. But some of them were actually playing live music within the living room, which was great. So it was quite entertaining.
Right. So you kind of part of a band, Dave, or were folk trying to encourage you to join a band, or you leave that to other people? You're just playing football.
Well, I did try to become members of certain bands through my friends, but I was that bad at singing, that bad at playing any instrument that I usually get thrown out. So I just stuck to football.
Right. Okay. And you don't remember the kind of first single you got or an album or any ones you remember back in the day you really enjoyed?
It would have been the Eagles' Hotel California.
Right. Okay.
That's probably my best recollection of the one I would have played back in the day.
Great stuff. Right, let's bring in some more points or questions. Or kind of quickly self-editing here. James Shields, who is a regular viewer, he's the Hamilton Accies stadium announcer and does a bit of commentary on their TV channel. So thanks for tuning in again, James. He says, can you ask Slim who his favourite player to play alongside was and the best player he played against? Now, that's obviously very easy to answer, Dave. I mean, we could spend half an hour debating this one, but are you able to give us one possible answer for each? Alongside and one against.
Yeah, I think looking back, Terry Butcher, when he was England captain, when he came to Rangers, for me as a sort of young Rangers player, to play alongside somebody that stature, he played in the World Cup finals, was a bit of a legend for England. That helped my game tremendously. So Terry was certainly up there. And the best player I played against is a difficult one because there's quite a few. But I would say Marco van Basten, when we played against Holland in Euro '92 European Championships. It was fantastic. He was 6'2", 6'3". He was fast. His movement was great in the air, great with either foot, and one of the players I respect tremendously. Sorry, guys, I think I've lost your sound there.
Hear me, Dave. Hi, Dave. Oh.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, I've got you now. Yeah, you're back.
Right, we drop out there.
Yeah, I lost you for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Right, we're back in the game here. Sorry about that, everybody's watching. We had a wee technical issue, a few gremlins in the system. We'll put it down to our friends at StreamYard. It's a great platform, but something funny went on there. Anyway, we're having a great discussion about the most difficult player he played with. The best player he played with, and you were talking about Terry Butcher there, and you're beginning to tell us about the most difficult player he played against, which is a difficult question.
Yeah.
So who was that, if you're possible to do?
It was probably Marco van Basten, who played for Holland. I played against him in the European Championships 1992. He was 6'2", 6'3", really good in the air, great movement, fantastic goal scorer, great with his left foot, great with his right foot. Just a tremendous player to play against. So he was one of my sort of favourite players anyway, but to manage to play against him and not let him score a goal was even better.
And in terms of playing in the Scottish Premier Division, as was any particular players you always find it quite tricky to play against in the Scottish leagues?
I think, to give respect to all players, that they're difficult to play against. You just have to concentrate and be the best you possibly can be on the day. But playing against players like Henrik Larsson, Ali McCoist, John Robertson at Hearts, top goal scorers, they're all they've all got their own abilities and they're all very difficult to play against. And if you give them an inch in the box, they'll score a goal. So you have to be on top of your game every time you play against these sort of players.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to kind of when you first sort of hit the heights at Rangers back in, late 80s, 87, 88, that kind of era there. And, some real iconic Rangers players you played with. I mean, people like McCoist and Durant, I suppose, are obvious examples of that. But we can sort of bring it back to kind of the music, which is half the reason we're here to have a conversation. I'm going to guess there was always some interesting music played, perhaps in the Ibrox dressing room or on the team bus, or maybe there wasn't. I would just expect with someone like McCoist, there'd always be a party nearby or a potential party, but was music part of the kind of pre-match in any way when you were playing at Ibrox in the late 80s?
I think in my early days at Rangers and back to the late 80s, I don't think it was that prevalent to put on your boogie box in the dressing room. I don't think that was allowed. Probably latterly, you get away with it a little bit more, and coaches, managers realise the impact of powerful songs can have on a team spirit at the dressing room. So back in the day, it wasn't that prevalent. But once we get together as players and sort of some off time, then you would have, music on in the background to lift the spirits.
Yeah, I can't imagine Mr. Souness being a big fan of his a ghetto blaster in the changing room before he took to the field in an Old Firm match or against somebody in the Scottish Cup. I can't imagine he was he was very keen on that. It was a different era and different motivations, but it's fascinating nonetheless to kind of think about how important the sports psychology is now in music. But I'd imagine back in the day, Mr. Souness would not be a fan of any of these newfangled ideas about music and sports psychology. It'd be kind of pretty old-fashioned, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was probably very basic in its intentions, that you just basically you get told to go out and play for Rangers and do the best you possibly can. There was no sort of motivational tool other than the fact that you were wearing the jersey and you were representing Rangers.
And people often talk about people playing for Rangers and Celtic in particular. It's you've got to have the mentality to kind of deal with that. You've basically got to win every single game, and in many occasions you've got to win it fairly convincingly to keep the fans happy. Was that something you found kind of tricky, or was that kind of almost like drilled into you from whenever you joined at a young age that this was just the level of expectation being a Rangers player?
Yeah, that was the expectation of being a Rangers player, that you were expected to win every game and win it handsomely. If you beat somebody 3-0, sometimes that wasn't good enough, and you had to beat your sort of rivals, on a regular basis and win trophies on a regular basis. So I joined Rangers from school when I was 14, so I knew the sort of structure, I knew what I was getting into, I knew the expectations as soon as I got into the first team, that to maintain staying in the first team, you had to have the sort of qualities, the ambition and the determination to want to win.
And obviously, a very successful time at Rangers and some great players, as we said. You mentioned Terry Butcher, but it tends to like the kind of celebrations and maybe have a wee night out and enjoying some music to go dancing to. Was it any particular highlights of people's particularly poor or maybe amazing dancing skills if you ever went for a wee celebration night out?
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of celebration nights out, but I don't think there's much dancing going on.
I imagine there's certain people who probably are quite a few dark horses, or Christmas nights out and things like that. Was that a thing? I've seen teams getting dressed up for big nights, extravagant.
We used to have a sort of fancy dress. I think back in the day that was the thing. Every Christmas day or night out, it'd be a fancy dress. But looking back on it, it was a bit of a horror show. Some of the outfits that some of the guys turned up in were a bit, Batman and Robin and Wonder Woman.
Are you going to reveal what you got dressed up as, Dave? Or is that top secret?
Top secret. You're not hearing that. Yeah. And I wasn't Wonder Woman.
No, I hadn't put those two together, honestly. Right, we've got a few comments coming in. We'll put a few up on the screen. A few fans of Dave in his time playing for Rangers and Hearts and obviously Scotland, which we'll come on to. But if you have just joined us, welcome along to Graham Eason's playlist. You're watching obviously on Facebook or YouTube. If you've never watched before, it's very much about you guys getting involved. If you want to pose a question to Dave McPherson, either about football or maybe something to do with music. Very, very illustrious career, as we know, Hearts, Rangers and Scotland in particular. So feel free to get involved. Post a question on the comments and we'll put them up on the screen if they're fantastic, as we've had already. So a few people kind of commenting so far. There's not necessarily questions as such, but we'll bring one in from Boise. Now, Boise's, again, one of our regular viewers, Dave. Not Boise from Only Fools and Horses, but Boise Allen. He says, what was it like to go to the 1990 World Cup? Favourite memory from the trip? Again, you could probably talk for hours about that one, and you've probably been asked it before, but, I suppose like any player, going to a World Cup must be such a great achievement and a feeling.
Yeah, that was probably the highlight of my career, representing Scotland at the World Cup finals in 1990 in Italy. But there's that many great memories from it. Playing against Brazil, beating Sweden 2-1. Bad memories, losing against Costa Rica.
Yeah.
But one memory probably stands out, and it's when we're all together as a team if we went anywhere, you had security that would go with you, and it was like Italians, like police or undercover police, and the guy that was in charge had a Bible, so he'd carry this Bible about with him, and inside the Bible he had a gun. So he had like a pistol inside the gun, and he would just show you every now and again. He said, "I look after you. I look after you. If anybody attacks us, I will shoot them." And he just pull this Bible out, then a gun would appear. So the behind the scenes events at these places are phenomenal, as well as taking part on the pitch.
Yeah, one of the things I remember, but I think it was either that tournament or perhaps it was kind of 92 European Championships. You were wearing the number 8, and I thought, well, why is Big Dave wearing number 8? He's not like a central midfielder, but correct me if I'm wrong, was that to do with how many caps you had or something? Was it either 90 World Cup or was it the European Championships?
I'm not sure it was that year, that tournament, but it eventually went to alphabetical order.
Ah, right, okay.
And unfortunately, I think it was the Euros that was number 13. Because my name was McPherson, it was at number 13. But I'm not sure about the first one, why they had me at number 8.
Yeah.
I did play centre midfield at some point, and a few other positions.
Yeah, I mean, you're mainly obviously centre back, and you played sort of right back, as we used to say in the old days before everybody had these newfangled Christmas tree formations and whatever. But did you mind getting kind of switched about there, or was there a position you actually wanted to kind of hold down, or was it a case, right, as long as I'm playing, I'm kind of happy? Which I'm sure is true, but there must have been a part of you thinking, I'd love to just nail down this one position.
Yeah, well, majority of my career I played centre back, and that was my position. Some of my early games for Rangers, I was attacking midfield because I got on at the end of things. I was tall, I was quite athletic, I managed to score a few goals. So I think I was more like a modern day footballer. You have to be adaptable, and I think the more positions you play, the more interest maybe other teams and coaches would show in you as well.
Another thing that people will remember you for is that long trip you took back and forward for a few years back along the M8, back and forward, Hearts twice, Rangers twice. Very successful in various ways with both teams, and I got the impression you kind of enjoyed playing for both teams, and it's success at both, obviously Rangers a bit more than Hearts. But if you were to sum up your career, you think actually, I had a really good career, obviously playing for the World Cup for Scotland, and it's easy to focus on the Rangers thing, but Hearts must have been enjoyable, maybe in a slightly different way.
I loved my time at Hearts. I mean, more or less 10 years at Hearts and 10 years at Rangers, but my 10 years at Hearts were fantastic. My first spell was great. I broke into the Scotland team while I was at Hearts. I was captain of Hearts. A great honour, very proud to be captain of Hearts at the time, and that certainly helped my career progress. Rather than go backwards when you leave Rangers, it certainly put me in a sort of upward spiral, which was great. But the time at Hearts, there's absolutely no regrets. Any of the moves or the decisions I made regarding my football career. I had a fantastic career and very fortunate to have played for two fantastic clubs.
Yeah, and obviously apart from the sort of difference in size of supporters and the size of the stadium, any other kind of major differences we might not notice between kind of Rangers and Hearts, or things that were kind of done a bit differently between the two clubs in terms of their sort of preparation or training, or sort of unique things that Hearts did that maybe Rangers didn't do?
I think obviously Rangers financially a bit more behind them back in the day, so the facilities were probably better than what you get at Hearts. But then that made the Hearts players a little bit more ambitious to say, well, we have to train harder, work harder to get to the sort of level that Rangers are at. And my first year at Hearts, when I left Rangers, we finished above Rangers in the league. So it proved to be a good decision, me actually going to Hearts. We finished above them in the league, we qualified for Europe, been on a good run the following year in Europe. So it turned out to be a good decision with hindsight.
And in terms of, some great players in your time at Hearts, I spoke to Gary Locke a few years ago on the podcast version, And Gary's a great lad, I'm sure you know well, and big fan of music, big into Stone Roses. But I was asking him, like, what was everybody else like in the dressing room? You played music and whatever. And he says, John Robertson, he says, he was a Shawaddy Waddy man. Do you remember much Shawaddy Waddy getting played? Or is that just a nasty spread there about Robbo?
I think that's a malicious rumour getting spread about Robbo. And a good one, a very good one actually. But I certainly wasn't an Shawaddy Waddy.
But was when you had your time at Hearts, was music becoming a part of the dressing room? Was it different from Rangers in that way? Into the try to change things up. I mean, Lockie talks about music being part of it for him. Maybe it's a slight generation, but any changes in that regard?
That would be my second spell at Hearts. That music was more prevalent in the dressing room and on the bus, going to away games. Then you certainly listen to a bit more music than what we did back in the early days.
Was that something you did individually, or was it somebody put the tunes on and put the tape cassette, because it might have been a tape cassette back then, on the team bus? So was it kind of individual thing? Folk had their wee Walkmans?
Well, initially it was the cassette into the team bus, and somebody's bad playlist would get played, and you would like 1 out of 10 songs. But then it became a little bit more individual with the Walkmans and other gadgets that were going about post that. Yeah.
Right, very soon we're going to bring in the tunes of Dave. So if you have just tuned in, thank you for doing so. And Dave, like all the guests, has been asked to choose 5 tunes that are motivational to him, or ones that perhaps he associates with sporting moments in his life. We're not going to play them out for licensing reasons, but we'll put them up on the screen in a minute or two. Before that, we'll get to one wee question from Scott Harris, who's viewing just now. And if you have just joined us, if you want to pose a question to Dave, just get involved, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Just post your question and we'll put up on the screen. So we'll hear from Dave about his 5 tunes, but we'll take a wee question from Scott Harris, who's tuned in again. He says, what was the difference in playing for Souness and Smith? There's a great question.
Well, Walter Smith was assistant to Graham in 1987 and when he first joined. So I don't think there was a great deal of difference between the two of them. I think Walter was a little bit more experienced and his man management style was certainly a little bit better. Whereas Graham was a bit more, he would just come out with whatever he first thought about. He was 33, I think, when he first became Rangers manager. So inexperienced, as I said, but Walter was certainly a little bit more thoughtful about how he approached players and how he thought the team should play.
Do you think you responded better to anyone in particular?
I've had a number of managers throughout my career, and I would regard Walter as being the best out of all of them. He was fantastic. His man management was unbelievable. Motivational wise, it was great. He didn't have to say a lot, but what he did say made a lot of sense, and obviously got a great deal of success due to that.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, we could talk about Rangers and Hearts all night, but we're going to talk about music, which is half the reason you're here. So Dave has chosen 5 bits of music, and everybody naturally would find this very tricky to narrow down. My challenge to my guests, not to choose just their 5 favourite tunes, but where they can, ones that are kind of motivational in some way, or perhaps they've got a link, perhaps, to a sporting moment in life. So I'm going to put them up on the screen for us all to see, and Dave can sort of briefly talk us through about why these songs are on the list. Say they could be for a sporting reason, or maybe they've got some big powerful meaning. So I don't know if there are any hierarchy or order, Dave. I just put them in the way you told me. So you two, Where the Streets Have No Name, any particular reason why that makes it onto your playlist?
Well, it takes me back to 1987 when Rangers won the championship after a great deal of years without winning it. And that was the year Graham Souness arrived at Rangers and brought in Terry Butcher, Chris Woods, and a number of top players. But the Scottish players that were there already had a great bond, and we, after winning the league, certainly wanted to celebrate it. So we went to Israel, Tel Aviv, for an end-of-season trip. And Ian Durant got a new either CD or whatever it was at the time, the Joshua Tree,
Yeah.
and he played this incessantly. He played this song like 20 times a day, basically. We're at the pool at night time, at the pool, breakfast. He played it all the time. So it's etched in my brain how good this song is, and the sort of musical intro and the ending.
Yeah.
It's got great memories
Yeah.
for me. And also the meaning behind the song. It's about being brought up in Ireland, where people would know your religion due to what street you lived on. And
Yeah.
it's a bit like where I get brought up in the West Coast and Pollock and Glasgow, that people would know your religion through where you actually lived. So it's a sort of double meaning, the sort of football side, the motivational side, the memory, and also the upbringing.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good story. The Fray, How to Save a Life. What's the story behind that one?
Yeah, well, it's just a fantastic song in general. I love the tune. I love the lyrics are fantastic. And I think the title speaks for itself. I think we're all dealing with a lot of sort of mental illness or mental problems at the moment, and if you can take that little bit of time out to help somebody that's close by or near to you, then it's worthwhile doing.
Yeah, now the next one I think is a great choice, but underrated. Green Day, great little band, couple of good tunes in their catalogue. You've gone with Good Riddance, so I'm really intrigued as to why this one makes it on the list, unless it's just a top tune.
Well, one, it's a top tune, but I think the sort of meaning behind the lyrics again. I think we've all been through tough times in our life and relationships, and I think it's the aspect to say that you have to move on in life, and basically you say good riddance to what's happened before and just move on and look forward.
It's cut out, Keith, no? I can't hear. Right, so Dave's just talking us through. Just cut out a wee second there. I'm not sure why. If you can hear me, Dave.
Yep, I can hear you.
Right,
Yep.
sorry, it was cut out for a second. So you're saying about Good Riddance, sorry.
Yeah, well, obviously, first and foremost, it's a great song, but I think we've all been through sort of relationships in our life, and things don't work out the way you want them to. And, good riddance is a way of saying, like, I'm going to leave that behind and move on and look forward. And nothing better than a good song to help you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Bruce Springsteen is the next one. We've had this quite a few times from various guests on the podcast version. Born to Run, is that an obvious kind of sporting link to it?
I don't know if it's so much a sporting link to it. I love Bruce Springsteen. I've been to see him a number of times. He's my favourite artist of all time. So I could have picked a number of songs, but Born to Run has got a great intro as well, and the lyrics are fantastic, and it just one of those songs that get you going. If you sort of wake up in the morning, don't feel great, stick that song on, and you'll certainly feel a lot better.
Aye, that is probably one that's quite a good driving song for all your driving and travelling. I imagine that would go down well for many people. And the last one on your list now, Alphaville's slightly more obscure to maybe some people, and some people. Alphaville's, is that the band that had Big in Japan? But it's Forever Young. So talk. I'm genuinely intrigued by this one, Dave. This is quite a wee bit left field, but it's good. It's good to be left field.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's another song. It's if you listen to the lyrics, there's a lot of meaning behind it, and I think if you're a sportsman, a football player in general, your career tends to finish a little bit early compared to other jobs or careers. So Forever Young, I wish I was still playing football now. I'm 56, and when I listen to this song, I think, well, maybe I can get the boots back on and earn £100,000 a week.
Absolutely.
So that there's a meaning behind that. It's almost like try to remember your young days and what it meant to you, and what you learned from it.
Yeah, great stuff. Some great stories behind that. You're obviously a man who does listen intently to the lyrics, because you mentioned lyrics quite a few times there. So there's Dave McPherson's top five. So get yourself on Spotify or YouTube and think, oh, I've not heard Green Day for ages. Get it on. Get it on your own
Absolutely.
personal playlist. So thank you for sharing those choices with us, Dave. I've got a couple of comments coming in now. Bruce has come in here now. Bruce is trying to tease you here a little bit with this one. He's saying, Sunshine and Leith question mark. Now, I think he's trying to be a wee devil there, wee Bruce.
Well,
I think
I was going to go for that. It was either Sunshine on Leaf or Simply the Best.
Right. Tough choice between either of them there. But very well answered there, Dave. The skilled operator. However, Jack, who was on earlier on, Alphaville, good on any list. So you've got a thumbs up for Jack there. So
Thanks, Jack.
There are some other Alphaville fans. We'll come back to music kind of later on in a minute or two with a little secret, feature I have, Dave. It sounds like very intriguing and quite dodgy, but it's far from that. It's a little challenge later on. But one thing we've not kind of talked about in terms of your sort of career, you went across the globe. You went away to Australia to have a wee kick about over there. What was the kind of story behind that? Was that a sort of lucrative offer, or is it you're a person that has in your current job, or did do a lot of traveling? You're a guy that just likes to travel and see the world. Was that kind of part of the reason you went there?
Well, I was fortunate enough when I was back in 1983, when Jock Wallace was manager at Rangers. He took us on a world tour, and basically we went to London, Oman, Singapore, Perth, Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney, New Zealand, Hawaii, LA, Denver, Toronto, and back to the UK. So from an early age, travelling has always been part of playing football. But getting towards the end of my career, I could have maybe stayed for Hearts for another year. And I thought, I've been in Scotland for 20 years, played professional. I think I need a fresh start. So I had the opportunity to go to Austria. Thomas Flugel, who I played with at Hearts, said there's a club interested in Vienna. Then I thought, well, yeah, I'd certainly look at it. And then I had a couple of offers from Australia, one from Melbourne. And I thought, when did they play? So they played through their summer. And I thought, you're getting a bit older, difficult to stretch. Do I really want to play through a winter in the Northern Hemisphere or go to Australia? I might not have to run about as much. And then give something back to younger players who are coming through. I read a lot about Australia, the quality of the young players. So I decided to go to Australia and thoroughly enjoyed it. Had a great time.
Great stuff. And so do you still kind of play a wee bit of five-a-sides or something, or is that totally gone the football side of things?
Well, we had GSR had an assessment down in Milton Keynes last week, and I took part. I don't like taking part because, I'm 56 and some of the kids taking part are 15, 16 and 17. It's like, I'm going to take the ball off you and they're flying past you before you know it, So yeah. I've learned my lesson. I tend not to take part now. If I do anything exercise-wise, it's cycling. Right. It's non-weight bearing.
Right. And is that cycling round, go back to your Grand Tour of Edinburgh, your Grand Tour you're going to set up here? Is cycling, or do you go much further afield when you're cycling?
I did a lot of cycling through Edinburgh and beyond. That was during lockdown, the start of lockdown, but the traffic was really quiet. So I cycled from Edinburgh to Craigielaw, Abercorn, Aberdour, things like that, and back. So that's good cycle routes, but I wouldn't do that now because the traffic's too busy. It's one thing I'd like to see. It's a bit more with regards to cycle routes in the city centre.
Yeah, and go back to music. Are you a guy just wants to take in the scenery, enjoy the peace and quiet, or do you need the tunes on when you're on your bike there, get some Green Day and Bruce Springsteen?
Oh no, I definitely need the music on.
All right, okay.
I love the scenery, but I need the music on as well.
Right. So have you got a kind of just a random playlist for that sort of thing, Dave, or is it pretty much?
It's random. There's a bit of everything on there, and then I can always fast forward something I don't particularly like at that moment in time. But I think when you're cycling and you're out in the fresh air, it's invigorating, and you need some sort of good music behind you, a bit of rock, something a bit lively, good lyrics, as I said.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we need to get you teamed up with Keith. Now, Keith's pressing buttons in the Well podcast studio where we're broadcasting from just now. He's hiding away in the back there. So Keith likes a bit of cycle from the Well podcast studio here. He's always got his headphones on. So we need to get you and Keith to team up. Keith and Dave's big cycling tour of Edinburgh.
Definitely.
Keith's waving there.
Up for that.
Up for that. Right. James Shields says, the boss, fantastic, Slim. Another a lot of fans for your music choices here, Dave McPherson. You've obviously set a trend here tonight. People are very happy with your choices. Right, if you have just joined us and you've maybe just been watching some terrible football or listening to football in the Betfred Cup or something, then maybe you're tuning. What will I watch tonight before I go to bed? Well, you come and join Dave McPherson and I, just finishing off our chat about football and music and the power of music for Dave. And very soon we're going to have a little, well, it's not a quiz, it's a little challenge I have with a little prop. And Dave's now thinking, what on earth is this? It's pain-free. It's all about music and sport. But before we get to that, if you've got any questions for Dave McPherson, and maybe kind of quick, just keep them to music and or football. Just post, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, just post them in the comments and we'll get the questions to Dave McPherson. So, we've talked about obviously football and Hearts and Rangers in Scotland and going to Australia and a bit about your sort of career now, working with young people and trying to get them on a sort of career path. Is there anything else left in your life, Dave, you want to try and achieve apart from what you've done so far? Any burning ambitions?
I love travelling. So there's a few places on my bucket list that I would still like to go to.
Okay.
Obviously at the moment, COVID-19, that's a bit prohibited, but
yes,
certain parts of America, because I deal with a lot with the colleges out there, I want to go to San Francisco. I'd like to go back to Hawaii, and so traveling is sort of the spice of life. I try and tell as many young kids, the opportunities that you gain, the experience you gain from traveling, contacts you pick up, the job opportunities that you pick up by traveling. It's a fantastic experience.
Yeah, right. I think it's time to bring out the sort of prop. So and this is a hat, Dave. It's a big bubble hat. If you get a bit chilly, get yourself a big bubble hat. Now in the hat, Dave,
it's funny you say that. Look.
Oh, it's like we scripted this. What was that one? Can't quite steer it. Going to put it across again, Dave. What have you got?
What is it?
Oh, what's that saying? It is it a brand? Is it or is it?
Oh, it's a brand. It's Explorer.
Explorer, right?
It's my travelling hat.
It's because Dave is an explorer. I see what you did. So, in this hat, it's a big bubble hat. Now, in this, Dave, are lots of sort of wee questions, but it's not like a quiz. They're either to do with kind of sport or music. So it's kind of favourite this. Now, as I say to all my guests, it's kind of quick fire. Not that I'm looking for a one-word answer, but as eloquent as you are, Big Dave, if we're kind of short and snappy, we can get through quite a few. So
no problem.
There are literally questions in here. So for the viewers who see before you know, so that look, they are actually bits of paper. Right, this one here. This is always intriguing when it comes out. So, Dave McPherson, is there any Scottish sports personality who you would like to see and hear on playlists? So, whose music would you be intrigued by? Oh, I'd love to know what he or she has on their playlist. Could be past or present. Who would
I would go for Andy Murray.
Aye. We had that a couple of weeks ago. I actually can't think what he would be into. What would you say, Dave? What do you think?
I think being a Hibs supporter is probably pretty poor like selection. So, but I'd like to hear what he's got on his playlist.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be dance or it'd be kind of indie or it'd be kind of sort of. I
think it'd be sort of Highland music, that sort of stuff.
Right, Dave McPherson's just warming up here, by the way. Right, okay. Dave McPherson, is there a match, which could be football or any match in terms of any sport, any match or sports event that you'd love to go to? You've not been to yet, but you'd love to go to this sporting match, football or any sport.
I'd like to see. Obviously, LA Lakers just won the basketball there.
Oh yes,
I'd love to have seen that. I think that'd have been fantastic. A lot of top athletes. Some of the basketball players are really, really best athletes in the world, top athletes in the world. I'd love to have seen that live.
Yeah. I'm going to be really cliched here, Dave McPherson, and probably people have said to you, "Oh, Dave, you'd be great at basketball." You must have had that question a million times, or volleyball, no?
Well, I think I've got the height, but certainly not the skill.
Well, you never know. You never know. Still time. Right, what's next out the hat? What's the big bubble hat? Give them the publicity. Right, now you've maybe alluded to this earlier on. I think you maybe told us, but you can tell us again for folk who weren't tuned in back there. Do you have, Dave, and again, it's tricky to narrow it down, do you have a favourite band or artist of all time?
I would say overall it's got to be Bruce Springsteen, the boss.
Yeah.
I think some of the songs he's produced, co-written and sung either live, recorded, or acoustic sessions are, fantastic. Just top man.
And have you seen him live?
I've seen him live a number of times. I've seen him in Edinburgh at the Playhouse when he did the acoustic session. He played for 3 hours and he basically said at the start, "I'm going to play, don't applaud after each song." And that was it. He played for 3 hours.
Wow.
That's talent.
Yep, that is talent. Right, what's next at the hat? Okay. Right, well, kind of linked to that, Dave McPherson, is there a gig which was just very embarrassing? Embarrassing either because you were dragged along to it when you're 6 years old and you didn't want to go to it, or it was an embarrassing gig because something really just random happened, or something happened on stage. An embarrassing gig, Dave McPherson. Have you been to one?
I went to see Robbie Williams at Murrayfield, and he was singing, obviously live, and there was lots of knickers getting thrown about. Basically, I found that embarrassing.
Right, you're stickler for high standards.
Well, especially when we're throwing my knickers about.
Right, well answered. Right, okay, it's a good one. Test your memory here, Dave McPherson. Do you remember the first football match you ever went to? Not the one you played in, but actually the one you went to as a punter, a wee boy, perhaps?
I don't know. That would be back probably 10, 11 years of age, when you get lifted over the turnstiles.
Yep.
And I would have been taken to Ibrox by my dad.
Right.
So that was a long, long time ago.
Right. Okay.
Then I would have been left outside the pub after that.
Right. You okay for a few more, Dave? You okay?
Yeah.
Good stuff, right? Well, I don't know what's happening next. We'll soon find out. Yes. Now, we don't always get through all the questions, and I'm absolutely delighted when this one comes out the bag. Right. I think we could give a fantastic answer here. Dave McPherson, is there a singer, a band, or maybe a genre of music you just cannot stand? You just hate it. You just don't get it whatsoever. A singer, a band, or a genre of music, you just chuck it straight in the bin.
Not really. No, I've got a really eclectic mix of music in my playlist, so I would say that I would listen to anything.
Right.
Nothing that I would not let. I mean, from classical music all the way through to hard rock, I would listen to anything, and I would appreciate. I would appreciate the talent. Right.
Okay. That's skillfully answered. Bear in mind, you basically slagged off what Andy Murray was into about 5 minutes ago.
Well, that's Andy Murray.
Right, your next quick fire question. Oh, this is, again, it's a tricky one, but it'd be fascinating to hear your answer to this one. Dave McPherson, do you have a favourite Scotland player? Now, that may or may not be somebody you've played with. It just could be somebody you enjoyed watching when you were growing up, or maybe somebody you've watched since you retired. So, do you have a favourite Scotland player? I know it's a difficult question, but that's what's come out the hat.
I would say Kenny Dalglish.
Right.
Kenny Dalglish was a fantastic player. Played a great deal of games for Scotland, and probably underachieved as a player playing for Scotland, because obviously we never did that well.
Yeah.
Never won anything, but he was a fantastic world-class player, and definitely he was up there.
Yeah, absolutely right. You okay? We've got a couple more here. We're getting some good answers here. Now, again, you've kind of alluded to this maybe partly in an earlier answer, but maybe you might have a slightly different way when I ask it this time. Do you have a favourite gig you've ever been to? I mean, you mentioned seeing Springsteen. That may, in fact, have been your favourite gig. You talked about Robbie Williams and people throwing knickers. But do you have a favourite gig you've been to, Dave McPherson?
I would say the favourite one would be my first one that I ever attended, and I seen Bruce Springsteen in Sunderland with Ali McCoist. We both drove down. Well, he drove.
Here we go. We're warming up now.
Attended Bruce Springsteen at their stadium, and it was fantastic. It was like a breath of fresh air for me. Young boy out of Pollock, Glasgow, going to see Bruce Springsteen in a stadium. Just,
yeah,
that was the journey, the start of the musical journey.
Right, and I'm sure Mr. McCoist was on his best behaviour that evening.
He was indeed.
Excellent. Right, we've if it's okay with you, Dave, we're going to rattle through the last two because your answer's been so great, and that means we're almost wrapped up. If you have just tuned in, you've just got a few minutes if you want to pose a question. I've got one I'm going to use later on, so you have to be quick if you want to pose a question to Dave on Facebook or YouTube. We're doing the Bobble Hat question now. I love this question. Well, I made it up myself, so of course I do. But Dave, either because you've worn it yourself, or maybe one as you're a wee boy, you always loved it. Do you have, Dave McPherson, a favourite football strip of all time, which may or may not be rather one that you've worn yourself? It was maybe a particular era that you enjoyed wearing, or one you had when you were younger. Favourite strip?
I do. It would be the Leeds United strip, going back to the 70s, when it had the sort of stripes down the top.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You had the matching shorts with the stripes.
Right.
And that would be mid-70s. So
right.
I think that was the first football strip I ever had.
Right, okay.
And I think we were that poor back in the day that the stripes at the top never actually matched the stripes in the shorts. They were sort of offline. But
yeah.
To me, it was a Leeds United strip, and that was the most important thing.
Brilliant. We've actually got a whole load of questions coming here. We'll have to rattle through quick if we're okay. We can rattle through just before 10 o'clock. Right. And the final question is football related. And in the world of football, Dave, as we know, lots of rules coming and going. We don't want to speak about VAR as such, but is there anything about football, a kind of pet hate? Maybe it's a rule or some weird thing that people do. I mean, for me, I get fed up every single player seeming to just slide on their knees when they score a goal. Where's the creativity in scoring a goal these days? So is there a wee sort of funny little thing like that about football? Or is there a rule that just gets your goat?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. Probably the celebrations are a wee bit over the top, and you can't really understand them. But it could be where people are from, the different countries, religions. You just don't know. I think refereeing, it's always got to be refereeing indecisions, and that seems to be taken away from them these days regarding off-field cameras and VAR and fifth referee, sixth referee, or whatever. It seems to be getting more complicated. Rather make the game a little bit more simple.
Yeah. I can't remember back in the day. I mean, as I said earlier on, you scored quite a few goals. Was there an official Dave McPherson goal celebration, or was it just like you're absolutely delighted to score and everyone just jumped on your back and you're quite happy?
Yeah, there was always a Dave McPherson goal celebration, but it was a bad one. It was never one to be celebrated.
Right, if it's okay with you, Dave, just because folk have taken the time to pose a question, if I could take a couple more, if that's okay, if that's fine with you. So, Brian Budin's come in and says, good shout in basketball, Dave. If you need someone to attend an NBA Finals game with in the future, I'm your man. There's an offer for you, Dave.
Yeah.
We'll connect you up with Brian Budin there. I know Brian well, so it's a kind offer from Brian. I think he's actually been serious. I don't think he's on the wind up there. Right. Next up, we've got Bruce Methvin. He was at the Playhouse in '96 in the Edinburgh Playhouse with Bruno. Right, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Is he talking about Bruce?
I think so, yeah.
Right, thanks for your comment. And what's he saying? Seeing Bruce Springsteen and the Ghost of Tom Road Tour. I think there's a wee spelling mistake there. I think Bruce is enjoying Bruce Springsteen and maybe some sherry at the same time. Right, Chris Welsh. Dave, the hardest man you've played against? There's a good question.
The hardest man? Oh, God, that's a difficult one. A lot of tough players. I mean, I think when I played for Hearts against Rangers, Mark Catley was one of the toughest players ever. He was athletic, strong, really good in the air, fast, left-footed, very difficult to mark. And jagged elbows as well.
Right, that's the questions coming here. I'd love to spend more time talking to Dave McPherson. We've had a good old chinwag about Hearts and Rangers and Scotland and lots of Bruce Springsteen's concerts. His insights into what music Andy Murray should be listening to or not. So I want to kind of thank Dave for giving up his time, and for you guys watching on YouTube or Facebook Live. If you have just tuned in, then there's other shows you can maybe go back and press rewind on. So a couple just to highlight. We had the Scotland manager Shelley Kerr, like Dave, coming live and direct, sharing her love of music. Dave, she's a big fan of the 80s music.
Oh, so, good one. Well done, Shelley.
She's in the 80s, and slightly more left field, but a really, really good watch is Peter Dixon, who's the voice, or was the voice rather, of X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, and also was the voice of Bruce's Player Cards Right, which I'm sure, Dave, you were an avid watcher of back in the day. He worked with me at the Olympics in 2012. A great laugh there. We've also had Scott Hastings, British Lion, Tam Cowan, Scott Wilson, who Dave will know, I'm sure, as being the stadium announcer at Hearts, Kirsty Gilmore from the world of badminton, and some sort of Hibs support there, Grant Stott, who does a bit of broadcasting as well. So they've been some of the previous guests on the live version. But in terms of the podcast version, we can actually hear the music the guests have chosen. Maybe we'll make up a wee version for Dave McPherson. We've got Doddy Weir, absolute icon of sport and rugby, obviously sadly suffering from MND. A wonderful conversation with Doddy. Stephen Gallagher, Ryder Cup golfer, very much into Simple Minds. Is Simple Minds an act you would enjoy listening to, Dave McPherson?
Absolutely. I've got a few of their good songs on my playlist. Love Song.
Indeed, aye. So Stephen Gallagher, listen to him in conversation. And Adam Hastings, part of the new Scottish rugby squad for the autumn tests. He loves a bit of Justin Bieber. What do you make of that, Dave McPherson?
That's pretty sad.
Well, I'm glad you said that. So, there's plenty for everybody. So if you like Dave McPherson, you like getting a wee cycle on your bike, just get one of the episodes then. Over 60 to choose from. The great and good of the Scottish sporting world, like Dave McPherson, have chosen their tunes. So in the podcast version, you can tune in there. There's also a one that I think Dave might quite like, actually. I'm not sure if he's past the generation of John Beaton refereeing him, but John Beaton, football referee, has got a wonderful conversation, some great tales of nightclubs in Motherwell, and being a big fan of the Ministry of Sound music is John Beaton. Who'd have thought that? And tales of Willie Collum playing TTF in the dressing room pre a UEFA Champions League match. Part of that may be true, but it makes for a good story nonetheless. So these are some of the people you can listen to on the podcast version of Graham Easton's playlist. So fill your boots with that. Just go to whoosh.tv/Graham Easton's playlist. But in the meantime, I want to say a big thank you to Dave McPherson, giving up his time, sharing his chat on his football tales and his music. He's a big fan of music. I want to wish Dave all the best in his careers. Hopefully he's back on the road, travelling about and getting the best out of all these young people. Have got a fantastic talent through his business at Global Sports Recruitment. And the final thing I say tonight, as always do, stay safe, take care, keep washing your hands, and we'll see you at a football match sometime soon. Thanks for watching Playlist with myself, Graham Easton, and Dave McPherson.
Thanks.